Hi, Angel. Let's rock and roll on the.
Good evening. Welcome to this workshop of the Hopkins School Board. We are fortunate to have some community members with us here physically in our space tonight, and I would just like to thank my board colleagues and our staff and community members who are joining us both for the workshop and the meeting for braving the roads. I have heard that this is perhaps the snowstorm that will rival the great Halloween storm of 91. So we will all have new stories, and like our kids will have, their version of that story that they can tell. So we will see. Tonight we have a pretty packed workshop agenda. So I will turn it over to Dr. Mary Peary-Reed for our first agenda item, which is the CTE updates and awareness.
Thank you, Chair Westmoreland, and good evening, board members, colleagues in the audience, and those of you listening virtually. I welcome my CTE colleagues to the virtual board table, or Mr. Sabin, you're welcome to approach the physical table here. So in Hopkins, we do dream of a future where every Hopkins high schooler will graduate with admissions to a college of their choice and or a career-aligned certificate that allows them to begin work in a career placement that allows them to earn a living wage. And we're so proud of the work that our college our CTE Career and Technical Education Coordinator, Cara Levon, has begun doing at Hopkins High School. We're really proud of the work Mr. Sabin is doing at Hopkins High School. And when time allows, Mr. Sabin, if you would please let our board members and community members know of the unified course that you had first term, I think it was. That will be exciting for them to know. And so we're really working on intentionally building out robust career-aligned pathways so that students will be well prepared for college and or career. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Innovation, Design, and Learning, Ann Ertl, for a system-level framing. And then our high school Principal Crystal Ballard, will provide a school-level framing. And then we have Cara Levon to provide our CTE update with Mr. Sabin helping. And I'm not sure if we have other CTE guests in the virtual space that are prepared to help with the presentation. So welcome, and I will ask Ann to provide additional framing.
Well, thank you, Dr. Mary Peary-Reed, and good evening, board members. It's my pleasure to turn the virtual and physical space over to Principal Ballard and Mr. Sabin and Ms. Levon to share the really amazing work that's happening at Hopkins High School. And just to kind of ground CTE really in the work of implementing Vision 2031 and the Hopkins Learning Framework. As we think about career and technical education, historically that has been a space where hands-on and competency-based learning has really risen from. And so I think that as we think to what the future of our CTE programming is, it really is a beacon for sort of the spaces that we want learning to look like in a personalized and competency-based environment. And so I'm excited for them to share the work they have done and some of their visions for the future.
Thank you, Ann. Cara, would you like to begin your presentation? And do you have other, so Mr. Sabin is here in person, but Cara, do you have other presenters virtually?
Yes, I have two students who are joining us, who represent the career and tech ed classes that they've taken. And they're also both members of two of our career and technical student organizations, ProStart and DECA. So I would like to give them just a little bit of a chance to talk about their experiences in just a minute, if that's all right.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here, scholars.
And I can't see, is Crystal there? She was gonna start, but,
Principal Ballard, are you in the virtual space?
okay. Well, we can just get started with our presentation. I'm Cara Levon. This is my first year as the Career and Technical Education Coordinator at Hopkins High School. This is my 23rd year in the district. And so I have a very fond relationship with the Hopkins School District. And I'm excited about what this new role has brought to my professional experiences. So what, let's see. Okay. So kind of new to Hopkins High School this year. We would like to strengthen our pathways and offer more certification programs to our students so that they actually have certifications and badges when they graduate from high school. So they have that useful certification that they can take with them. So our first two certification programs that we will be implementing next year will be in our Health and Human Services pathway. And that will be a first aid AED CPR certification, which will be offered to 9th through 12th graders. And then we're super excited about our certified nursing assistant program, where the students will take their 76 hours of classroom work and their 16 clinical hours as part of a class through Hopkins High School, and then they will be able to sit for the state exam upon completion of that class. And on successful passing of their exam, they will be a certified nursing assistant. So we're super excited about that program. I will be attending the National Policy Summit in Washington, D.C. in March, and I'm excited to work with 32 other educators from Minnesota to talk to our senators and state representatives about the importance of career and technical education in high schools. We also have a teacher who has been asked to testify at the state legislature about why it is important for personal finance to be a state graduation requirement. And that Mr. Broughton was slated to testify tomorrow, but that's been postponed due to our wonderful weather. So I'll be excited to update you on that as well. February is Career and Technical Education Awareness Month. It's a time for us to reflect on what we have done in the past, what we are doing currently, and what we plan to do in the future. So I'm excited to be here to let you know about what those plans are. We have more teachers that are becoming fully licensed in career and tech ed. And there is a process that is in addition to a regular teaching license that needs to be completed in order for teachers to be licensed in career and tech ed. And all but one of our teachers will be licensed at the end of this year. So we are excited about that as well. We're starting a manufacturing and IT internship next year with a educational company called GPS Education, where they have secured paid manufacturing and IT internships for our students that qualify. So our juniors, sophomores and juniors right now that are interested are going through that application process. And those students that are accepted will know their placement before summer break. So we're excited about that as well. We've also started a program called Gateway Wednesdays, where 1 to 2 Wednesdays a month, we have local businesses that come into the high school during the student lunch hour. And they either talk to students about current job openings that they have, or they talk to students about what types of career they might offer. Park Dental came in and they had a booth and they talked about what types of careers they had available with a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, and a high school diploma. So we've had some great feedback from our community members that have attended, and I've even had some that have asked if they can come back. So we're excited about continuing that program as well. So I know I have Aaron and Angel are here. I'm gonna ask if we can just wait for a minute to hear from them, because I kind of want to jump to the next slide if possible. I don't know how many of you are familiar with exactly what is career and technical education, but I think Dr. Mary Perry Reed did a nice job of explaining that, but I just kind of wanted to overview a little bit that CTE is delivered at both comprehensive high schools, magnet schools, and technical centers. So Hopkins is part of a consortium with 10 high schools and Hennepin Technical College and North Hennepin Technical College. So we work together to provide these pathways and develop new pathways that are good for students. So CTE is good for students, it's good for businesses, and it's good for our community. CTE in Minnesota, there's just some statistics that there are 121, almost 122,000 secondary CTE participants and 44,000 post-secondary participants. And it is good to note that 90% of students that participate in a CTE class at the high school level graduate from high school and go on to some type of post-secondary degree. So that's a kind of a good statistic. And so you can see the federal funding for CTE in Minnesota. Current Tech Ed is funded by the Carl Perkins Grant, and our school writes a mini grant that then is accepted by the consortium, and just for the high school, for curriculum development, for ongoing curriculum support, teacher development, those types of things. Our grant this year that we are running off of is $28,000. And then that is renewed each year. So part of my role is to work with the consortium to write that grant for the Hopkins district. And part of my graph did not come up, or my text, but these are the students that have taken a career and tech ed class at Hopkins High School this year. So we have had 2,000, almost 2,400 students enroll in a career and tech ed class. So that's exciting. The next slide is 47 is the number of CTE courses that are offered at the high school, which we're very proud of. There is a wide range of classes that are offered to students at the high school. And the next slide should give a little bit more of a breakdown. So the areas in our career and tech ed program at the high school, we have 4 current pathways: family and consumer sciences, business marketing and law, technical education, and then next year we will be adding the health and human services. And then the next slide gives, I'm not sure, there's a couple slides that are missing. I'm sorry. I did give a breakdown of those 47 classes, just to give you an example of the wide variety of classes that we offer. And currently, we do not have any certifications this year. But as I mentioned before, we do have the 2 certification classes that we'll be adding for next year. Before we get to the call to action, I want to give Mr. Saban a chance. I see Ms. Brandonbauer is in the background with one of the Pro Start students, and I'd like to give Angel and Aaron a chance. So, Mr. Saban, did you want to add anything?
I'll start by talking about one of the courses I offered this year. I'm Mr. Saban, I teach in the tech ed department. I offered a compass woodworking course with our compass students. This is last year was my first year back at the high school. I've been in this for 27 years. But before that, I spent 20 years out at the home school. So being at the home school, I was required dual licensure, so I have my special ed license in EBD. So last year when I was working, some of the students had come by to look in the shop as they were picking up stuff at the copy center. And I said, why don't you guys in my classroom? And they were like, well, we can't. I said, no, you can. We'll make this. And then, so I said, let's make it work. And I said, I have dual license. I can run the class. And they can be in here with their IEP, and I can be the teacher. So it was record. So we made it work. So I had them first quarter. We had an amazing time working in the shop, having them use power tools, learning how to do assembly line work, learning how to do measurement, pushing them way outside their comfort zone, but showing that they can be successful in it. And I'm excited. We're going to run another one fourth quarter. So I'll have another group. A lot of the ones that saw them coming back with their projects were like, I want that class. So we're going to have that class run fourth quarter again, and hopefully next year it'll fit into the schedule. I'm proud to just say that we offer the 23 courses. That's more than most high schools in this area offer in my department area. And it makes a lot of work for me and Mr. Kelly Collins, but it's worth every second that we do to be able to offer kids that wide of a gap or wide of a range of courses. And I don't know, is there any question? I don't know.
Sure, Westmoreland.
Sure,
What
yeah.
kind of things do you do in the woodworking class?
Our woodworking class, we start with a table because it teaches them the steps to build a rectangle.
Okay.
How do you go from rough wood to a true rectangle with 90-degree corners?
Yeah.
4 or 5 different joining methods. And then we go into our woods 2 where they can, as long as they have a blueprint and it fits in our time frame, we build it. And then if they take woods 2 a second time, that's when they can come in with an idea. And we teach them how to make a blueprint and a bill of materials. And then we have our construction course where we do focus on residential framing. So those are our areas of wood.
And we have all the equipment necessary for that at the high school?
Yes,
Wow.
tight space, but we fit them in there.
All right, thank you.
Are you aware of an inclusive model like you've created in any other high school? I mean, like you said, it would have to be taught by someone who has dual
No, it's
licensure.
no, I don't. I brought it up at a meeting I was at last week, and people are like, you, what? And the other part is, I'm not afraid. I mean, I had a student in a wheelchair running a miter box. And it goes back to when I was at West 27 years ago. We'd have inclusive classes, and I had students who was like, okay, I need you to put that hand in your pocket, this hand on the piece of wood, and then I'd put my hand, and we go for it in a safe manner, but we go for it because we can make it work.
Talk about personalized learning, right,
Yeah.
in practice.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Mr.
I'd
Saban.
like to give the 2
Ms. Levon,
students
oh, I just
an
wanted to let,
opportunity to, oh, I'm sorry.
it's okay. Ms. Levon, I just wanted to let you know that Principal Ballard is also at the board table, so we'll let the scholars speak, and then I just wanted you to know that she's here because you probably can't see her, and then she can
Okay,
have a
great.
few words
Thanks.
as well. So we'll have the scholars go next. You can introduce them.
Okay, Aaron, I'm going to let you go first, and I'll let you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the classes that you've taken in the business area and talk a little bit about DECA. And then Angel, you're up after Aaron.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, first off, good afternoon. My name is Aaron Siddiqui, and I'm actually new to the Hopkins School District, so thank you for having me. In terms of career and technical education, I've had the good fortune of being a part of quite a few of the classes at Hopkins High School. I've started off with entrepreneurship, and then I took marketing, and I'm also part of Hopkins DECA, and I'll be participating in the Minnesota State competition next month. So coming from, like I said, it's my first year, and I've pretty much done IB my entire life. So coming from a different curriculum into Hopkins, the ability to choose a wide variety of classes was refreshing. But in addition to that, having the ability to get a glimpse of a post-secondary future that I would be interested in had a profound impact on me as a student. And all of the classes that I've taken in terms of career and technical education has influenced me in ways I could have never imagined, building up a Hopkins experience that has truly blown my mind. In terms of entrepreneurship or marketing, I've developed a sense of maturity, developed a sense of understanding for business in a way that has allowed me to seek it as an aspect, to seek it as a career following my post-secondary education. I feel like a lot of my fellow students, peers, including myself, we have a very pessimistic outlook on what careers we want to get into following our post-secondary education. We use our asymmetric information on careers that people around us are in, the information we can get online, and we make these decisions based on this asymmetric information. Having the ability to get a glimpse of what this education would look like in high school has an impact on students, allowing them to find out on career fields that they'd be interested in. I came with a very STEM oriented mindset coming into Hopkins, taking as many STEM classes I could take, AP Calc, AP Physics. And then as soon as I walked into entrepreneurship, as soon as I took marketing, as soon as speakers started coming into my class, my ambition for business skyrocketed. It was no longer a career field that it wasn't a career field that I thought would, okay, that's just not for me. It was something that I wanted to do following high school. So absolutely incredible experience, something that has definitely shaped me for the rest of my life. If you have any questions, love to share more.
Aaron, thank you so much. It's so exciting to hear about your Hopkins experience and what it's meant to you. You used a term that I'm not familiar with, and so I'm curious what asymmetric information is. You described it a little bit, but I'm wondering if you can define it for us and help us understand that a little bit more.
Yep, for sure. So basing off career decisions on little to no information on it, as I mentioned, I came into Hopkins with a very with the lens of becoming a computer science major, basing it completely off my passion for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So that the decision to base off my career off STEM came from my understanding that a business career would not be something that I would be interested in. Let's take marketing, for example. I took marketing as a class at Hopkins. When I was going into the marketing class, I had a perception that, okay, marketing would be something more artistic, something that I would not be interested in. But that completely blown my mind, that how different it truly was. I used my asymmetric information to completely eliminate a career field that I find is a better fit. So, yeah.
Really interesting. Thank you.
Angel?
Hi, I'm Angel and I'm in Culinary 101. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm in Culinary 101 and Pro Start. I've been cooking and baking since COVID, and I love the opportunity of getting more knowledge in baking and cooking. With Pro Start, I've been able to get more techniques from the professional chefs I'm working with, which are Tommy and the pastry chef that I'm working with. I get to learn more about the pastries I will use for the future for the career I have. And then for culinary, from Miss Brandenburg, I've learned a lot of techniques and knowledges from her for the basic life skills of working in a professional kitchen. I've learned from knife techniques to measuring to sanitation in a professional kitchen.
Wow.
And if you have any questions, please ask.
I'd just like to say you look like a professional right now.
Yeah.
I think you're practicing for Pro Start right now, right?
Yeah, we're in a competition right now, and I'm in the dessert section. And we're making a mini crepe cake with the ganache filling, and then we have a chocolate glaze with the candied orange. And then for our main and appetizers, we have a steak with the broccolini and a side of potatoes with the ceviche as our appetizer.
Oh, my.
Wow.
Sounds wonderful.
Sounds very fancy.
Can you bring some over?
Oh, wow.
Angel, what is the most fulfilling thing that you've made? I was going to say, what's your favorite thing that you've made, but sometimes those can be different things, right? So wondering kind of what was most fulfilling for you to work on as a chef?
Probably what I'm working on now, which is perfecting the crepes. And then I've learned about what's right for using chocolate for making my ganache, like different types of chocolate, different types of heavy cream, different types of techniques. Like we learned from using a cooler to leaving it out to chilling it. I've learned new ways of making ganache and glazes for the crepe cake I'm making.
I've never made any of those things.
No.
I'm so impressed.
I struggle with cupcakes, so that's wonderful.
Angel, thank you very much
Principal
for.
Ballard,
Oh, I was just thanking Angel, and hearing her speak reminded me, Mr. Saban, do you remember the post that we saw on Facebook of the recent Hopkins High School graduate who is now
Yes, I don't remember his name. We had a senior last year who went to work for, Robbinsdale. Travail.
He worked for Travail.
Went to work for Travail and just started working for them, and it turned into, he's now in England.
Wow.
He wasn't sure what he was doing after high school. He knew he wanted college, but it was kind of going to be a gap year. He was taking some tech ed classes with me, but he was like, he was doing senior release to go to work. And they just saw a post that they were congratulating him that he got placed with the top chef in England, and he's doing an internship in England right now.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Miss Brandenburg, do you remember his name?
You know, I'm so embarrassed. I don't.
Oh, it's okay.
As a matter of fact, he was not my student. He had graduated just prior to COVID, I believe.
Okay.
So, he was never my student because I came here in 2020.
Okay.
Well, good luck with your desserts in the competition.
Thank you.
She's very talented, so we're very excited for next Tuesday.
You have to be. Crepes are not easy. Impressive.
Thank you.
Principal Ballard, did you want to add anything?
I would love to. Thank you, Cara. I just want to say that I continue to be impressed by the work of our CTE department. Cara came this school year as our CTE coordinator. It was a large need, a huge gap in our high school. And since Cara has been the CTE coordinator, there are so many things that are happening. She spoke about our CNA lab, which is something that we're very excited about. She talked about our Gateway Wednesdays, where we're bringing employers into the high school to interview and have conversations with our scholars, with the local businesses in the area. And that work wouldn't be possible without the support and dedication of a full-time CTE coordinator. She's able to coordinate with our FACS department, with our business department, with our tech ed department, and bring these departments together in a way that creates pathways. As I was talking to families during our registration night, some of the things that they were excited about were the pathways that are clearly articulated at the high school, and that work would not be possible without Cara. Before, Cara was one of our evaluators in our special education program. And she and I had many conversations around transitioning to CTE, and I feel that it is the perfect fit for her. She has so many ideas around taking CTE at Hopkins High School to the next level. Some of these things we've talked about as it relates to artificial intelligence and many different other pathways that will exist at Hopkins High School. So I, again, want to reiterate how grateful I am to have someone that is dedicated on CTE in our building, because we know that when we have those pathways that are clearly articulated, we have a direct impact in our community. Also, I'm grateful for Jen, who's at the high school, obviously, working with ProStart. ProStart is a program that we brought back this year, and it's great to see our scholars engaging competitively with career pathways, things that they are passionate about. And one thing that Matt did not say is that each year during our commencement, we have the table that is on stage that is created by one of our scholars in the program, because they do such an amazing job building things. I always get excited as I see them talking about the tables, and Matt is very reflective and is constantly getting feedback from our scholars about the experience. So in one of his surveys, he asked them what are some things that they would add or take away, and everyone said that we needed to keep the table. We needed to keep the table as a part of the curricular. And it's just remarkable to see them talk about their tables, talk about which ones are better, the different designs. There was a young man carrying one down the hallway recently that was showing me the intricate wood designs. And they are building these products that they can be proud of for years to come. And it is attracting more people, not only to the classes in the CTE department, but also to our district, as I've talked to families about the CTE offerings at Hopkins High School. So again, I'm so proud of this work. I'm happy that it's being supported in the way that it is. And the amazing people that you have spoken to, including our scholars, are the reason why CTE is thriving in the way that it is at Hopkins High School.
And I just add, I forgot, last year, one of our scholars won first place at the state fair with their table and got a $400 college scholarship from Rockler. So that was pretty cool that she put a lot of time and a lot of effort and definitely deserved that reward. And I'd like to just admit how much I appreciate Cara's work this year, especially to get us all licensed, that correct licensure we're talking about, because that licensure is related to dollars. That's all it's related to. I can teach every single class I have with my industrial arts licensure, but my CTE licensures allows us to get levy-based reimbursement, and that's at 35%, which is a huge thing for our district. And I'm so appreciative that she's really helped us. It's because it's a navigation process, and she's done a great job helping us all navigate it to become licensed this year. And there's actually a bill right now before the House, and it's going to before the Senate, to actually change funding to 50%, which would be huge for our district, especially when you think of how many courses we offer, how many correctly licensed CTE teachers we have. It allows us to offer some amazing experiences so it's just, I just want to say that she's really helped us and helped the district offer this kind of curriculum at a cost savings that you probably wouldn't be available when you consider how much material goes into a table. It's an expensive class. It's a really expensive class, but it's really good for the kids. So.
And if I can just have a brief moment, whenever there's an opportunity for me to brag on the amazing teachers at Hopkins High School, I take it. So back in 2008, Hopkins High School, our board, of course, decided that we would offer personal finance as a graduation requirement. And David Broughton, who is one of our teachers in the business department, is testifying at the legislature on Wednesday to push that personal finance is offered in the state of Minnesota. He and I were having a conversation about that because it has been so helpful and has served in a way to bridge equity gaps in our community. Our community, as we talk about families who need support with filling out tax returns. So now our scholars have that skill set and are able to bring their families in and help their families with that. And David Broughton will be talking on behalf of Hopkins High School, but really pushing so that personal finance is offered in all of the high schools in our state.
As a parent, I can speak to, it's an excellent class, and I think it is offered in Hopkins at just the right time to prepare our students for looking toward their post-secondary options and being really realistic about that and not just thinking, oh, 4 years, that's what you do. And it's a great class.
Yes, I can recall going into his classroom specifically, and they were having conversations around homeowners insurance and liability insurance and like navigating this space of being injured on your property and what do you do and what is the appropriate coverage. So they're getting real life experiences around personal finance that is meaningful for them.
Yeah.
When we think about that through a racial and economic justice lens, that's really powerful, right? Because
Absolutely.
there are people who are born into families where that knowledge has been gained or experienced over the years, and they're able to communicate that to their kids. And because of structural inequities and systemic racism that we know pervades all structures in this country, there are students who have not gotten that information from their families. And so if we are really committed to eliminating gaps here in Hopkins, that personal finance course is necessary, in my opinion. So I'm grateful for that advocacy at the legislature. I was just kind of noting all of the advocacy that this team is doing, which is really phenomenal. I'm wondering if our Legislative Action Coalition can be of support in that space as you're working with the state legislature. It sounds like we've already got folks testifying and everything, so those connections have been made. But want you to know that the board is here to be supportive too, and our advocacy arm, the LAC, the Legislative Action Coalition. So anything we can do to support those efforts, count us in.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone for their time tonight and allowing us to present all the great things that are going on in the CTE world at Hopkins High School. And I do want to make a little plug for our Healthcare Pathways program that will be one of the special appeals programs at the Hopkins Education Foundation bash on Saturday night. So we're excited about that.
We're hoping to get more materials for the program, also mannequins, as we'll need those for the program. And we also have an Amazon wish list as we're hoping to launch this program in the fall, hopefully. That's our plan.
Thank you to our scholars who joined us too to share your personal experiences. That was really powerful.
Well, on behalf of the district and the school board, thanks to the entire CTE team, Principal Ballard, and our scholars, Aaron and Angel, for being here this evening and giving us such a comprehensive and detailed overview of all of the exciting things happening in the career and technical education world. We really appreciate your work and look forward to future updates.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Be safe out there. So we'll move on to our next workshop agenda item, which is our Citizens Financial Advisory Committee report. And we have some of our CFAC members here in the physical space with us. So I'd like to, first of all, thank you so much for coming and invite you up to the table. And I will turn it over to Dr. Mary Peary-Reed.
Thank you, Chair Westmoreland. I am welcoming a number of our colleagues and friends up to the table. So on our CFAC, which is Citizens Financial Advisory Committee, we have Luke Jacobson, who is out of town, maybe in a warm place. I can't remember where he is.
I think it was St. Louis.
Yeah,
Oh, never mind.
not warm.
Warren Goodroad, Ame Blatz, Ame Blatz.
Yes.
Okay. And Andy Kosemba.
You got it.
All right. So CFAC is a really wonderful, small but mighty group of people that partners with Hopkins Public Schools and our Director of Business Services, Tururo Chapanduka, to define parameters for the budgeting process. And this team has financial experience and expertise. They consider our enrollment trends, our instructional and operational priorities within the district, the legislative, including the governor's budget forecast, and other other indicators of statewide fiscal health to inform the budgeting process here. And so they are with us this evening to provide an overview of the report and their recommendations for the school board so that we can proceed with our budget planning. So welcome to the table, and thanks for being here. And I'll turn it over to, are you starting, Andy?
Perhaps.
To rural. Okay.
I don't know for the sake of the workshop where you want to start, or I have a more formal summary that I can read at whatever point that's helpful, or if, I know you've all seen the full report, I believe.
I think the past practice is you can just go ahead and give us the summary of
Okay.
the report, and then we'll give the opportunity to the board.
So go ahead and read this at this point. Great. So since December, we've met as a committee 4 times, including the CFAC members, as well as a handful of staff members and some of you on the board as well. So we've met 4 times, and kind of as a summary of our recommendations, the district is expecting a small decrease in enrollment for the current fiscal year ending June 23, and projecting flat enrollment in 24 and for the foreseeable future. State funding, which is based on enrollment, comprises just over 60% of the district's revenue. At this time, it's difficult to say if increases in state aid will keep pace with increases in wages and benefits, which comprise 82% of the district's expenditures. CFAC has analyzed multiple scenarios based on different increases in state aid and in wages and benefits. CFAC recommends budgeting for fiscal year 24 with a 3% increase in per student state funding and a 3% increase in wages, 3% increase in benefits, and a 7% increase in purchase services, utility, transportation, and supply costs. If this scenario plays out, there will be a positive budget balance achieved. Now, some of the scenarios for the fiscal year ending in June, CFAC's continued recommendation that unassigned fund balances are not used to cover shortfalls. If shortfalls are covered with that unassigned fund balance without taking corrective action, the budgeted shortfall amounts will be compounded, and the unassigned fund balance will quickly decrease below the board policy of 6%. The district's unassigned fund balance was $11.3 million, or 10% of the operating expenditures at June 30th of 22. And a balanced budget is anticipated for the current fiscal year, so that unassigned fund balance should remain over the CFAC recommended level of 10%. While the legislative outlook is fluid, if expenditures exceed revenues, it will be necessary to find efficiencies in services and programs while aligning with the district's Vision 2031 goals. That's the summary.
Thank you very much. We have 2 of our board members who sit on CFAC and are well aware of all of the conversations that have gone into compiling this report. And we are, you may have noticed, down 2 board members tonight. So wondering if those of us, I'll include myself, who do not sit on CFAC have any questions to start out with, and then we can just kind of open up the conversation here.
I did just have one question, and wondering, I know that your recommendation is that we keep our unassigned fund balance at 10%. Has there been any discussion or conversation around why the board's policy is at 6% as opposed to your recommended 10%?
I can give you some background, but back, I was on the school board for a while, and prior to my coming on the school board, the district went into a statutory deficit. And And one of the things that the district experienced was quite a bit of hardship around their finances. And this is back in 2005, 2006. And I think one of the things that came out of that experience was a school board policy that said 6%, but a auditor and a CFAC recommendation for 10%, and maybe the auditor's even a little higher. And so the problem, one of the problems is that, you know, the anticipated funding and the expected expenditures can vary, and the potential sources for revenues to cover unexpected expenditures is either the fund balance or to borrow money from monies that are set aside for long-term obligations like pensions and things like that. And so the result is that we really want to avoid any kind of scenario like that, and really a 10% is best, but you know, if it dips down to 9, you know, that if we were setting it, the school board set the limit at 10, it could go below that fairly easily, but 6% is the level that has been recommended by the school board for many years and has remained that. But from a practical standpoint, we've just operated on the basis of a 10% fund balance.
And I could also offer some background on that. The 6% is when the alarm bells go off. We prefer to keep it at least 10%, and our auditor has recommended 15%. So, and all of this does affect our credit rating too. And that's one of the reasons why our credit rating is still not at the highest level that it could be, because we are only at 10%. So if we were able to raise that by, 2, 3, 5 points, I think our credit rating would improve. But the 6% is in policy because that's when we blow the whistle and stop everything and reconsider what we have to do. So.
I can probably just add some more context to that. I think if you also go back to fiscal year 18-19, 19-20, our fund balance was actually getting closer to going back to the 6%, and then it started just going up, obviously, with some of the restructuring we did. We had the 2 years we had to cut $5 million, and also some of the one-time funding sources we got from the federal government, which actually kind of propped up us to get to an optimal level from a cash flow standpoint. And just knowing that we are going to end up losing some of those one-time funding is ideal for us to actually have a healthy fund balance.
Director Chapanduka or CFAC members, wondering if you can tell us a bit more, help our community understand the increase in fringe benefits. Is that mostly insurance increases, or kind of what's accounting for the projected 3% increase there?
The projected 3%, I can probably touch some bases around some of the economic factors which we have seen. One with healthcare claims. As you know, the pandemic did have some impact on a lot of staff mental wellness. That also made premiums shoot up. So we anticipate, I think, at a minimum 8% premiums. We also have other extenuating factors which are beyond our control. So in the past, we have had structure which was a bit different when it comes to our other post-employment benefits. And as you can remember, we used to use our post-employment benefits any investment interest which was coming in, we're using that money to cover up the budget gap. And we moved away from that practice and budgeted any of the annual OPEB premium claims and costs within the total board of the fringe benefits, which actually kind of took us to the real cost of our total benefits. And that's where that increase is coming from.
Thank you.
And Chair Westmoreland.
Yes.
On the healthcare benefits cost increase, I have to say that I think Hopkins has been self-insured for over 20 years, and that has saved us considerable amount of money. I talked to other board members in other districts, and they're amazed how low our healthcare costs are. But like Director Chapanduka says, that's something that's beyond our control. One bad claim can affect your experience for years into the future. So, but thank goodness we are self-insured. We were one of the first districts in the state to do that.
One of the items that's really important in the report is the fact that 82% of our budget goes towards personnel costs. And so it really is a very big impact item.
I'd also like to direct the board's attention to Appendix K. It's something that we put together to show what the projected deficit or surplus would be based on certain assumptions about how much of an increase in funding the school district receives. And it goes from 0 to 5. And we struggled with how to project that into the future based on our experience with the state legislature. So, but that, when you hear people talking about putting an increase on the formula, that gives you an idea of what impact that's going to have on our school district. In this scenario, in Appendix K, it shows that our expenditures don't increase, which we know is not going to be the case. But you know, based on the assumption that we're going to have flat expenditures over the next year, that shows you what the impact would be for certain increases.
I appreciate that we continue to be what I would say relatively conservative around our enrollment estimates as well. I just think that that's wise. And as more people start to hear about the amazing things we're doing in Hopkins and want to come join us, of course, we will welcome them, and that will be beneficial here financially as well. But I think it's a good idea to remain conservative in that so that we can budget appropriately. So thank you. What other questions do we have for this team? We will see you again at the meeting, of course, which tends to typically be a bit shorter conversation than at the workshop. Especially tonight, we're just mindful that the roads are bad. We want to make sure that you get home safe and sound. So we'll look forward to seeing you again at the meeting. But wondering, as long as we have some time here, if there are any other questions or things that feel important to talk about with our CFAC team.
Ask the hard questions now. So we can rehearse.
I actually do, do have a question that I'm not able to answer. If there's an increase in virtual attendance and virtual EDU, how does that impact knowing that the sites itself, I mean, I know as an aggregate, it looks like there's going to be a flat increase, but will increase in virtual EDU play a part in basically, I guess where I'm trying to go and where my brain is going is, I know most people who work from a site business where the customer has to come to the site, that's never going to go away. But then if you have like an increase in online, does that kind of cover like the flat enrollment, or is that online? I guess just my ignorance is I just don't know if you have an increase in virtual EDU, does that still play a part in the flat enrollment overall? If I'm asking my question properly.
Yeah, I mean, I can take a stab at that. So this is our second year with virtual EDU. So what we did, I mean, we've treated virtual EDU just like we would treat a startup company. So we invested into virtual EDU, one with some of the dollars we got through the federal stimulus packages during our first year. And then since we didn't have any historical information, which we use for projections, we projected a certain number of students going into virtual EDU. And one thing we've seen is there's kind of been a bit of challenge in terms of sustaining the model when students are coming into virtual EDU and then going back into a building, and how we actually allocate the budgets for both the sites and virtual EDU is demand follows the students. So the students who got enrolled into virtual EDU, and we projected a certain number of students coming into virtual EDU, which obviously with a lot of shifting with students wanting to be in the virtual EDU space, and then the next thing is they change their mind and want to go back into the classroom, and without a specific mechanism of having those dollars keep following the month back and forth, we just invested some dollars so that we can continue building the virtual ED enrollment. But to answer your question, if we end up with more students coming into virtual EDU, that means our enrollment will probably generate more revenue to the district, which in normal circumstances will follow those students. And I don't want to speak from a programmatic standpoint, I'm just talking from a resource allocation standpoint, that any dollars which are coming to either virtual EDU or to our traditional class buildings will expand programs or additional staff in those spaces. So if we get any additional enrollment, the resources will be furnished to help build more either enhancements to the program or hire additional staff in those spaces. And I think maybe the superintendent can speak to some of the changes which are coming with virtual EDU in terms of maybe like blended learning, where we can probably have students have some flexibility to take classes in traditional spaces at the same time being able to experience virtual education.
Well, Dr. Tiffany, our instructional futurist, she has a really cool title. She's one of the architects for virtual EDU. She is working on a number of features to help enhance programming. So as Director Chapanduka indicated, and for this we do need an additional accreditation from MDE, but that would be that would allow us to have high schoolers attend partially in person at the high school and then partially in virtual EDU. So we're seeking that allowance. And then we are looking to offer, and I see Director Ertl on the screen here too. So, and I'm trying to explain that we are offering a blended model at the K-5 grade band level. Is that correct? And because at least 2 surrounding districts do not offer virtual learning during kindergarten through 5th grade, then we are seeking to partner with surrounding school districts to be able to capture those students. So that is another great opportunity. Is there more that you want to add to that, Director Ertl?
Sure, just one or two other items that I would add. Another opportunity that we are pursuing, sort of with a nudge from MDE. We are looking at ways to, we're looking at ways to offer enrollment for students, not just within the state of Minnesota, but also outside of Minnesota, even including internationally. There are no other districts in Minnesota that offer that currently. And there's a little bit of a niche available because we do have students that travel internationally, and some students who even live internationally for part of the year. And they really kind of get stuck because of a residency requirement. So if we figure out how to do some kind of maybe a fee-based model, we may be able to offer learning for those students as well. So we're pursuing that. And then, as Dr. Mary Peary Reed mentioned, we are on a campaign to enter into some almost kind of consortium agreements with some of our neighbors, because we are able and continuing to offer elementary programming, and other districts are not doing that. There's a way that students can attend virtual EDU, and we can capture the per pupil funding while the students are still enrolled in their home district. So we're kind of exploring all possible options to really get those numbers up.
Thank you.
Other questions for our CFAC team? Like Steve said, ask the hard questions now. Well, great. Thank you so much. You are our first new business agenda item at the meeting, so we'll look forward to seeing you then and then getting you on the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you in a bit.
Excellent. So we will move to our last agenda item for the workshop, which is a budget update. So Director Chapanduka is going to stay with us, and I'll turn it back to Dr. Mary Peary Reed.
Thank you, Chair Westmoreland, and thank you for continuing to be with us, Director Chapanduka. Truro and his team have been hard at work completing the audit and preparing the predictable staffing allocations, the preliminary staffing allocations to our site and district leaders. It's a lot of time and a lot of attention to detail. So thank you for your work, Truro, and appreciate the partnership that we have with CFAC so that we can begin to merge all of this information into a cohesive planning process for fiscal year 24. So I'll turn it over to you, Director Chapanduka.
Thank you, Dr. Mary Peary Reed. Good evening, Chair Westmoreland. Good evening, respective board members. What I have here is just a high-level overview of where we are. I think the CFAC recommendation actually get us into full gear on the budgeting season, which is one of the most challenging seasons in terms of resource allocations. I just wanted to start by giving some timelines of where we are and what direction we are taking going from now into when the board approved the full budget in June. And we've been meeting since around about October, November on Thursdays, Thursday morning for 2 to 3 hours with all district leaders. We started by looking at some of the programs which are being offered, just putting into consideration that we are moving into the 6-9 transition, and there's going to be certain changes which we have not probably experienced before, one with staffing components, enrollment, now that, the sixth graders are moving to the middle schools and the ninth graders to the high school. So what we did, just so that we at least give some level of understanding to building leaders and department leaders, just knowing the little information we have in terms of not really getting some of the inflationary increases from MD at this point in time. So we used the best information we had to do some preliminary allocations into our buildings using a 0% increase, knowing that CFAC is recommending a 3%, so we'll go back and remodel what that looks like and make some updates to allocations which have already been presented to building leaders as well as department leaders. Between now and March 15, we are cleaning up some of our budgeting systems so that we can start working with building leaders on the process we call a budget tie-out, which will happen between March 15 and April 15th. And then we'll come to the board the second meeting of April for a preliminary budget as well as a revised budget for fiscal year 23. And that will lead us to make any necessary adjustments as we go into our first read of the budget in May and a final budget approval by the board in June. So one of the things we've been doing is to look at our current year budget. And I know some of the information was shared by the superintendent during a state of the district address in terms of where we are with our overall budget for the school district, which is sitting at about $157 million after we have made some adjustments considering what we had projected for the current fiscal year and the actual numbers we have seen, which culminates into some adjustments we have to make on the revenue and expenditures for the current year. And when we look at our financial outlook as it stands right now, putting into consideration our fiscal year 22, we are finalizing everything with the auditors. So what I have here is the unaudited financial numbers, and the auditors will just present once they've finished their audit report, which will probably be in the next few weeks here. So the current fiscal year 22 is projected, and the actual numbers we have show an actual positive variance. Again, part of it is because of some of those federal dollars we received, some of the restructuring we did when we presented the budget, and then when we started on the actual works of the budget for fiscal year 22. So that's a positive note of a little over $2 million. The challenge we have is around the current year. Just knowing that we had projected a higher enrollment, and the actual enrollment ended up not getting there. So the positive variance we are seeing in fiscal year 22 will probably be diluted by covering up any anticipated overages for the current fiscal year 23. I mean, we can't give the real numbers. We are trying to make some shifts and make sure that we minimize the impact. But if there's any impact, we'll be able to actually cover that using those dollars without really dipping into our fund balance as it been presented by CFAC. So that's one of the workarounds we are anticipating to put into consideration as we go into fiscal year 24, which definitely presents its own challenges, considering that we are anticipating a flat enrollment, but at the same time, there's also discussions around any inflationary increases which may come our way, which definitely will break even when we start to look at declining enrollment, a bit of an increase to our inflationary increases on the basic allowances. So we are putting that into perspective as we start to plan for next year and beyond. One of the things I've kind of started to do, when I started to look at what a 1% or 2% or 3% or 4% or 5% increase look like.
Usually there's only 3.
That's how fluid it is. I mean, so we're just trying to play with, different numbers, just making sure that whatever increases coming our way will relate to how we go into negotiations, because we will be starting negotiations here soon with HEA. So if the negotiations are beyond what we are receiving from the state, knowing that we are also not going to get any additional funding in terms of those one-time and sustainable funds we received from the federal government, and our enrollment is after either flat or declining. So there's a lot of decisions to be made here, and I know the CFA group recommended the 3%, so we've been trying to play around with, like, if I take my current basic allowance coming to the district, which is $6,863 per ADM, and then when I start to look at a compounded consumer pricing index going back to 2002, 2003, if I factor that and come to 2023, 2024, 6,863 should be $8,176. So there's a gap of about $1,313 to get us to at least where we can say we are structurally balancing our budget. A 1% is $6,932, which leaves a gap of about $1,242. A 5% is $7,206, which still leaves a gap of about $970 to get us to at least a space where we can say our revenue is really meeting the needs and the quality of service we need to provide for our scholars. A $970 gap is about $7.2 million. That's a lot of teachers right there. And I'm not even factoring some of the cross subsidies, which we don't have information around. So just trying to factor all those pieces into the equation, meaning 5% might sound great, but when we look at reality and where we are, it's not even meeting the basic of the needs we need to address here, considering some of the mandates and some of the maintenance of effort, maintenance of equity requirements coming from the state. So I just wanted to bring this to the board so that at least as we start to work on our budget, there are some challenges we have to address, which are actually sometimes be beyond our control. The other component to this too is our other post-employment benefits. Our actuarial advisors always want us to maintain the funding from a liability standpoint at about 90% for our other post-employment benefits and severance. So now we do have a bit of a gap, just considering that the revocable trust is invested in the stock market, in the bond market to be specific, and the bond market has not been doing very well. We are hoping that it will bounce, and I think it's starting to bounce. But right now, based on the current structure, our other post-employment benefit fund is up to about $2 million down, which definitely eventually to get us back. So what that does is it actually also lowers the level of funding, which we should be able to get us to the 90%. Right now it's sitting at about 72%, so we do have a gap of about 18%, which hopefully as those bond markets start to show positive results, we'll probably be able to get us close to what we had always anticipated, at least around the 82, 84%. And again, putting into perspective the ESSA funds, which definitely were a relief and were able to help us in a lot of our staffing mitigations, in a lot of our health, as well as building maintenance. Those dollars are going to be gone by September of 2024. So this is the time for us to start looking at a different structure, and that might also lead to some restructuring in our buildings as we plan for fiscal year 23-24. That's all I had. I will take any questions from the board.
Thank you, Director Chapanduka. So from an advocacy perspective, we should continue to advocate for that 5%. I don't think anyone was planning on doing anything different, but really like helping our legislators understand that that 5% doesn't even get us to where we need to be in terms of structurally balancing our budget, because we're still dealing with the compounding effects of being underfunded for so long. So I think, and you said this during your presentation too, that 5% sounds great. Like when you're used to getting scraps, you know, like a sandwich sounds great, right? But like our community deserves the whole meal. And we need to have that funding in order to close some of these gaps that have occurred over time because we've been consistently underfunded. So it was really helpful the way that you framed that. And I think it helps us and our community too, you know, understand when they hear, you know, historic investments in public education, yeah, that might be the case, but it still isn't getting us close to where we need to be in order to have a healthy, structurally balanced budget moving forward. So thank you.
This is a good time to tell you, Tariro, that the committee meeting tomorrow is canceled. But yes, so I've been asked to testify along with a few others for the Senate Education Finance Committee. That was supposed to happen at 8:30 tomorrow, and that is to advocate for the 5% and also to link the increase to inflation. But that has been canceled. I was going to text you in a few minutes, and then, but I'm sure it'll be rescheduled, and then, you know, we'll for sure advocate for Hopkins and also for other school districts across the state.
Yeah, but I have your material.
Oh, did you? Well, we'll just save it. Now you don't have to do it later.
All right. Perfect.
I had just a couple of clarifying questions. The first will be about the one-time funding, the ESSER funds. I know that we had multiple conversations with community members around that kind of fundamental question of, you're getting all this money, why can't you use it for X, Y, and Z, or to keep this teacher? Because at the time we were getting those, we were also right-sizing our budget. And we often talked at the board table and with our community members that those were one-time dollars and could not be used for sustainable budgeting purposes. So I am just wondering about that last slide where you were we're talking about that specifically, saying that now that those dollars have gone away, we're going to have to right-size staffing, which seems like a bit of a disconnect about the budgeting conversations we've had the last few years about making sure that we're not doing that. So could you clarify a little bit around how that's going to impact our budget going forward?
Sure. Yeah, so one of the things we've tried to do was to use the one-time funds for long-range goals, which more like we put funds one time, but it has impact into the future. But also, we did give some of the dollars to buildings so that they can prioritize one, whether it's staffing or whether it's programs. So I know we are kind of compiling the information right now on how those dollars have been used in terms of any additional staffing which have been hired temporarily by those dollars, so that we get a better understanding of what that might look like in a building. And it's different from each building. So to answer your question, we did kind of have some conversation around when we at least hire staff into a building, if that staff is a long-range staff, then we have to use our general fund. If a staff member is coming in just to either mitigate some of the challenges, for example, with subs, then we're using some of those one-time funds. And we do have that by, we created a different way of tracking those staff we knew will be in the system temporarily, and those we have used some of the general fund dollars to hire on a permanent basis. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, thank you. That's important clarification. And then I'm also wondering, with the 3% that was recommended, increase that was recommended by CFAC, if you could just give me a little bit of an understanding, is that 3% even going to touch being able to increase wages, which is something that we are seeing is making our staffing shortages, I'm not going to say desperate at this point, but it's starting to feel that way. Is that 3% going to even begin to address that issue that school districts are facing?
Yeah, I think, Director Anderson, I think that's part of what we are trying to start to have conversations around. So from a budgetary and resource allocation standpoint, we factored in a 3% cost of living adjustment, a 3% inflationary increase on the benefits, a 7% inflationary increase on supplies, purchase services, or any other expenditures. So as we start to meet with different bargaining units, we just want to make sure that however we negotiate is going to be sustainable. I don't think with where we are, unless if the state goes ahead and bumps our basic allowance to that $8,176, I don't think we'll be able to be attractive to their market, just because a 3% is not really going to do it. If you start to factor in all these other components which are outside of labor negotiations, those dollars are pretty much gone. So I think those are tough discussions. We definitely have to engage with our different bargaining units, as well as advocates with the state, if definitely we are going to create attractive opportunities for our precious staff in education.
Thank you.
Other questions for Director Chapanduka?
Yes, Chair Westmoreland, I just have one quick just clarifying point, just to make sure that at least I'm in the right meeting. So if I'm looking and understanding correctly, based on the 3%, it looks like fiscal year '25, I mean, that's where, if I'm understanding correctly, is really going to be very challenging if a site for some odd reason has some type of building maintenance need. That's where it's going to really be tough, because it seems, if I'm tracking, it seems like through fiscal '24, we'll probably be breaking even, but then once you get to fiscal '25 and moving forward, just based on projections, anything that like catastrophic happens at a building site or anything like that, that's going to be a very challenging proposition, to where that building might have to just look at potentially pushing that out, kicking the can down the road, or potentially looking at maybe funding half of it or a quarter of it.
So for, like, when we start to look at our, what I would define as our deferred maintenance, in maintaining our buildings, so we have a separate funding source, which is our long-term maintenance fund, which definitely take care of some of those components. This is strictly like the operating side of our buildings, meaning staffing, supplies, purchase services, a little bit of the capital maintenance outside of some of those sources of revenue coming from the state. So when you look at our LTFM, which is that long-term facility maintenance, is divided into two components. One component is bond funded. So like some of the bonds we sold in November, they go towards maintaining our buildings. And then there's a component which is also coming from the general fund, which they call pay as you go. And the general fund component might definitely have some impact. But the good thing about how this funding is structured is if it's general fund dollars coming in for long-term facility maintenance, we can't use those dollars for anything else. So we can't shift those dollars to go pay for staffing. They are just supposed to be used for maintaining our facilities. I think the structure we have right now, the challenge is within just the general fund on the operating side, because I think that's where we get a lot of constriction in terms of how the state calculates the funds and how we are so constricted from shifting funds to help in other areas in terms of, like, when we start to talk about our capital projects funds, I mean, we can't use them for anything other than capital projects. When you start to look at some of these LTM funds, we can't use them for anything other than deferred maintenance. But then when you start to talk about general fund, we can use those general fund for anything else. So the general fund becomes so tied to being open to be used anywhere else, other when the other funds are restricted to those specific needs, either in a building or in our operations.
Thank you, Director Chapanduka.
Chair Westmoreland,
Yes.
I'll just comment here that all the years I've been on the board, I think this year has been the most challenging because there's so many variables that are at play this year that are not typically at play. As we've seen in previous meetings, that our enrollment is unpredictable. There's been the rise of private schools, of charter schools, of so many different options for parents. And then you throw in the COVID response on top of that. That's really kind of introduced a whole set of variables that we haven't seen before. And also our state legislature, if there's anything worse than not having enough money, it's having too much, I think, because everyone's trying to line up to get their piece of the action. And it's really unpredictable to me what the legislature is going to approve finally. You know, the governor came in with a 4% and 2% increase on the, for the general fund. But, you know, I just read somewhere about a legislator from Blaine that's holding fast to 5 and 5. And that's great. I hope we get that. But we're also hearing, I heard today from the Minnesota School Boards Association that they're sticking fast to 5 and 5. But then you've got inflation on top of it. So, you know, what impact is that going to have? This year has been the most difficult since I've been on CFAC to try and predict what we should be doing in the next year. And I think we elected to take probably the most conservative approach because we don't know what's going to happen. Some of our questions will be answered by the end of the legislative session, but consumer preference, parent preference as to where they enroll their kids, what kinds of instruction they want them to have, whether it's online or in person, is still to be decided, I think, over the next decade. So it's a time of great uncertainty, and it's complicated the process of budgeting going into the future. So just an editorial comment about what we've been going through in the CFAC committee. So,
Important context
yeah.
that I think you should say during the CFAC agenda item at the meeting.
Okay.
Because I think that's
I'll make
really,
that, I'll make that point.
it's important framing, yeah.
Right.
Anything else for Director Chapman-Duca? Well, thank you. This is budgeting season, so we will be seeing a lot of you, and look forward to continued updates as we work through this together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Truro.
Yes, thank you.
So that was our final agenda item for the workshop. So we'll end the workshop now, and we will look forward to seeing you back here at 7. Thank you.
Test, test. Test, test.
Good evening. This meeting of the Hopkins School Board is called to order at 7 p.m. Our first agenda item is open agenda. This is typically when we hear public comment from community members. Our community has two options for giving public comment to the school board. You can either attend a meeting in person or leave a message for the school board to be played publicly at a meeting. And we have not received any voice messages this evening, nor do we have community members in the audience who wish to address the board during open agenda. We do, however, have a really exciting announcement for our community and some special guests with us this evening. So I will turn it over to Dr. Mary Perry-Reed.
Thank you, Chair Westmoreland, and good evening to board members, colleagues, and community members who are here in person and also in the virtual space. I would like to welcome Nora Tycast and Doug Schmidt to the physical board table, and we are very, very excited to have Mr. Schmidt with us this evening to help us recognize one of our amazing music instructors in Hopkins Public Schools, specifically at our high school. Nora Tycast has been named the 2023 Schmidt Music Educator of the Year, and she is very deserving of this award. And I was just explaining to Mr. Schmidt that we really love Nora, not only for her talent and skill, her musicianship, and music instruction to all of our students, but also for her leadership in the music department and also at the high school. She's a very influential staff member here in Hopkins, and so you're adding a lot of value, and we really appreciate you. And so congratulations, and we'll turn it over to you, Doug, so that you can continue with this very deserving recognition.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So I've got prepared remarks. I don't typically like to read, but I know your time limit is very critical, so I'll try to motor through and not wander off topic like I commonly do being in sales. So hello, my name is Doug Schmidt. I'm one of the fourth generation owners of Schmidt Music. I bring you greetings from my brother Tom and me, who represent our fourth generation of family ownership, now in our 127th year. We are also proud to say that we are rolling into our fifth generation with two of our children, Ted and Pete, taking active roles in our company. Today I get to do one of my favorite things, to celebrate the best music teachers in the 6 states and 400 school districts that we serve. We started this award back in 2015. A panel of past winners selects our new winners, 1 elementary, 1 middle school, and 1 high school music educator. Schmidt Music appreciates all of our music educator friends. We recognize that each one makes a monumental contribution to music education and to the lives of their students. We want to celebrate educators who go above and beyond, who contribute in and out of the classroom, who are revered by students and the community, and who deserve an ovation for their efforts. So as our panel of past winners contemplated all these wonderful music teachers, they found their way right here to Hopkins. As you may have guessed by now, drum roll, please. Nora Tycast, woo-hoo! As our 2023 High School Music Educator of the Year. In preparing for this celebration, I contacted several of Nora's friends for some good stories. Here's one that really jumped out to me. This one is from a woman who I've had the pleasure of working with for 27 years. Her name is Leanne Cardock. Leanne is a school service representative for my company, and she provides Disney-level service for all of her very fortunate customers. Leanne served Nora while she was in Spring Lake Park for the past 16 years. Leanne said that there is no one I respect in the band world more than Nora. And that just means a ton to me, because Leanne works with lots of different directors, and that's big praise. Nora's first teaching job was right here in Hopkins, where she got to work alongside now retired superstar band director Kay Hawley. In fact, Nora and Kay's daughter Diana were in the same class at Edina, and both went to become music educators. Kay said that Nora is a kid magnet. She is also a torch carrier for diversity in instrumental music. Also very high words of praise. Nora's high school band director, Bill Webb, and Kay Hawley worked together this past fall to nominate Nora into Phi Beta Mu, which is the International Bandmasters Fraternity. This is a very nice honor that recognizes Nora's deep dedication to her profession. In Nora's first stint teaching in Hopkins, she started the LMPM. What's that, you may wonder? The Lean Mean Performance Machine, but of course. Kay told me that it was Nora's branding of this program for their pep band that made the pep band blossom under her leadership. Finally, Leanne told me that Nora's commitment to diversity is so strong that she always displays pictures of the diverse composers that she regularly programs, specifically to show her diverse students that people who look like them are composers of the music that they are playing. Nora wants to inspire her students to know that they can also compose music or do anything else that they wish to pursue without barriers. How cool is that? Before I go, I'd love to take this opportunity to take some pictures. So if somebody could take my camera and we can maybe go up with the trophy and just snap a couple pictures with your Hopkins background, that'd be awesome. So.
Shannon's a better photographer than I am, so you're better off with Shannon.
Just a good old cell phone, you know, and bring it up over here.
Well, Shannon, you want to get in it and I'll have the board behind? No?
You don't have to
why
go,
I
too
always
crazy.
offer to
Just
take
snap a couple shots. We'll just have fun with it. You stay in. Don't go away. Cozy up. Come on, we need.
This is really nice with you.
You're bashful. Come on.
I would have dressed better if
All
I'd
right.
known this.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
Okay, one more. I'm going to get a close-up. Great.
Thank you.
That's all. If you have questions, we can answer. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Congratulations, Nora.
Thank you, Doug.
Yep.
This is really special. It was wonderful to meet you, Doug, and thanks so much for making the time and braving the weather tonight as well. Thank you so much. So we will move on to our reports. I want to check on the Google Meet and see if we have any student board representatives with us this evening.
We do. We have 2 student board reps here for you guys.
It's Grace Riley. Hi,
It
Grace.
sure is.
Hi, Grace.
So we are going to have Samia go first.
Okay. Hello, my name is Samia and I'm the 10th grade representative. Here's how the winter sports have been doing so far. The boys and girls basketball team have been playing really well this season. Overall, the boys won 12 of their games and lost 6, and the girls won 17 and lost only 2. One of the games that we lost was on February 10th. The boys basketball team lost to Wayzata 89-61, and the girls lost that same night 55-53. Many were devastated from this loss because it being Wayzata and because they gained a big ego from defeating 2 of our teams. It has not been looking well for hockey team this season though. The overall record ended up being 4-13, 4 being the number of wins they had and 13 being the number they lost. A reporter from the Star Tribune came on the 9th of February and interviewed 3 students. The reporter came to ask the students about the AP African American Studies course Hopkins will be providing next year. He was especially attracted to Hopkins because only 2 schools in Minnesota, as the reporter said, are teaching this course. The article is currently on Star Tribune and you're welcome to check it out. A brief summary of the article, the scholars interviewed talked about why they wanted this course and the benefits of having it here at Hopkins. It talked about the situation in Florida where they refused to teach a curriculum unless it was modified and more. On a minor note, sophomores and juniors were worried because they heard that their 9th grade IB gradings would get transferred into letter grades. When they found out that it wasn't officially done yet, they felt reassured but are still worried in the case that it does happen. And lastly, registrations for classes next year have opened up and will continue to be open until the 28th. Now that the 9th and 8th graders are coming up, they get to choose AP and honors classes we couldn't get to do because we had IB grading during our 9th grade years. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sammy. That's so exciting. I read the story in the Star Tribune about our African American Studies AP course, and it was really exciting to see Hopkins schools featured in that. So thank you for including that in your report. Grace.
All right. Yeah, so this is going to be a little bit of a lengthier one, just because I haven't seen you guys in a little bit. So, as Samia mentioned, term 3 has started, is well underway. Some highlights for the term so far: heartograms are back once again for the week of Valentine's. Students could sign up to give one to a friend, a significant other, or even in some cases a teacher. I believe this is the 4th or 5th year that these have been offered, and they are always a success. On February 15th, we had a clothing drive hosted by the Earth Club, which raised over $1,000. Students from Hopkins were able to bring in any used, kind of like a thrift store or like thrift shop rule, anything that was still like wearable, was in good shape. And yeah, they did very, very well, so props to them. Wellness center passes have been reinstated. The SBRs worked very hard with Principal Ballard to kind of figure out what was going on in there, but as of last week, they are back. These are the year-long passes that scholars had access to previously, so we are super excited about that. And then Hopkins also hosted a blood drive at the high school. We had blood type testing on Friday the 3rd during the lunch hour. And then we actually had the blood drive last Friday on the 17th. Registration for AP tests closed tomorrow on the 22nd. Just something to look out for any scholars that haven't done that already. And then ACT testing is coming up very shortly. It is on March 14th. Juniors and seniors have, of course, already signed up, been prepping super hard for that, as that is coming up in about a month. And then, as Samia mentioned as well, we are returning to pre-COVID grading. Essentially what this means is students will no longer have the option to get a P or a pass on their transcript. Of course, they can always talk to their counselor, talk to their teachers, figure out some ways to avoid having to retake classes, but the P is no longer an option since we are coming out of the pandemic time. And then our senior news, Charlie Fieldman has an upcoming fashion show within the next few weeks. He is the proud face of his own clothing brand, Captain. Charlie has had this brand for the past 2 years, and we are super excited to witness that. As we are all aware by now, thanks to the massive snowmageddon coming our way, we do have 2 virtual learning days this week. Friday is still a possibility for the high school for a virtual learning day, but for sure this Wednesday and this Thursday are going to be at-home days for us. And then to close out the reports today, just on a little bit of a sadder note, we remember a student in her junior year who passed away last Thursday, February 16th. Ashley Beard was remembered as a bright face in the halls and a great friend to all those that knew her. Students will be given the opportunity to send kind messages to Ashley's family in room 117 in the East Wing throughout today and tomorrow. Ashley will be remembered at graduation next year, and we are assured that there will be a place for her along with the 2024 grad class. I ask the board that we close the student reports with a moment of silence for Ashley. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grace. Thank you for that tribute to Ashley and the recognition of how important she was to our Hopkins Schools community, and for the moment of silence. That was really wonderful. Also appreciated hearing your update on the Wellness Center passes. I know that was something that our student board reps had brought up at the table here, and so it's great to know that your advocacy and collaboration has yielded results in that area. So thank you for keeping us updated. Any questions from my board colleagues for Grace and Samia? Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am very glad that you joined us via Google Meet instead of trying to brave the roads and come in. Thank you for keeping yourselves safe, and happy e-learning. Is that a thing we say? It is now. Okay. We'll move on to our superintendent's report with Dr. Mary Peary-Reed.
Thank you, Chair Westmoreland. And thank you, students, for your reports as well. So we are well into February when the days can be long and dark and very snowy, as evidenced by today. So we do have to search for and highlight the fun. Here is a picture of fun being had by our high schoolers at their Pep Fest on Friday, February 10. Our high school's Pep Fests are really, really exciting events. You just walk into that Royals Athletic Center, and it is a really amazing space for that 45-minute period. So I was bummed I couldn't attend, but I love these photos that capture our students' school spirit. At the Pep Fest, there were dance performances and relay races. And of course, the event culminated with a very competitive student versus staff basketball game. Spirits were high as scholars headed into the Sweethearts Dance Weekend. In honor of Valentine's Day last week, heartograms spread joy as high schoolers and staff were serenaded and showered with special messages, roses, and candy. There were a total of 180 heartograms that were delivered, so that's a whole lot of love. Although yesterday was not a formal learning day for students, it was a professional learning day for all Hopkins staff, including licensed staff, paraprofessionals, clerical staff, and others. Our Innovation, Design, and Learning Department and other leaders organized professional development for K-12 school staff. This included training around letters, personalized learning, 6th and 9th grade transition planning, and specialized training for our special education professionals. And I had the opportunity to visit several sessions. I also spent some time in the letters training, and what I think is important to say about that is with the nationwide concern around teaching reading, we are really excited here in Hopkins to be training the vast majority of our K-2 teachers in letters, which stands for Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. And this is training that is based in the science of reading. Teachers have very much enjoyed this training. It is very intense. It requires, I don't know the total, but many hours to go through the entire set of modules. And our K-2 teachers have really appreciated the cognitive challenge and the alignment of this training with their everyday classroom work. Right before the board meeting began this evening, we did have a chance to celebrate Nora Tycast. So I just wanted to share with our community members again that Ms. Tycast is being recognized as the 2023 Schmidt Music Educator of the Year. She's added a lot of value to our music program, to our high school. This past couple years, she was part-time at West last year, part-time at the high school, and full-time at the high school this year. As Mr. Schmidt referenced in his comments, she is recognized for her ability to build community among students and to help develop our students' abilities to express themselves. She works really hard to create opportunities for increased diversity and representation in who is visible as a performer and composer. So we really appreciate Nora Tycast for all that she's done for our students, and she's very deserving of this award. Congratulations, Nora. I also want to take time to recognize other esteemed professionals. So February 6 through 10 is National School Counselors Week. Our counselors, we have counselors in all of our schools, elementary, junior high, high school. They provide academic as well as social emotional support for our students, and they do have giant caseloads that keep them very busy. So we really appreciate our school counselors. And I also want to express gratitude for our illustrious school board members here in Hopkins who govern Hopkins Public Schools. MSBA is devoting the full month of February to our school boards across the state of Minnesota. So thank you, board members, for all of the work you do to serve Hopkins Public Schools. And we do not have Director Hartland or Director Kahn with us this evening, but hopefully you're listening from wherever you are, and we recognize you as well. And then February is also Black History Month, so in all of our schools there are many opportunities for our students to learn more about Black history in this country and also celebrate Black achievement through various events. I know the high school is having a Black History event, I think on February 28, if I'm not mistaken. So lots to do around Black history. 3 Hopkins High School students have been named candidates in the U.S. Presidential Scholars Program. Grace Wheel, Merlin Phillips, and Amanda Barnes were selected based on their superior academic and artistic achievements, leadership qualities, strong character, and involvement in community and school activities. The Presidential Scholars Program is one of our country's highest honors for high school students. A panel of educators will review the submissions and select about 600 semifinalists in early April. And then the Commission on Presidential Scholars, a group of 32 citizens appointed by the President, will select the finalists, and the U.S. Department of Education will announce the scholars in May. So congratulations to Grace, Merlin, and Amanda. I wanted to also share that we are launching our community engagement events with a state of the district set of virtual sessions. There are 7 total. We had one last week, and we will have 6 more. So we have announcements in all of our principals' newsletters to invite parents and community members to listen in to a 60-minute live virtual presentation providing some information about where we are in Hopkins, what we've been working on, and what the next 5 years looks like. So I was really happy that about 27 persons attended the first one, and we look forward to being able to engage with many more individuals. The virtual State of the District sessions will be followed by in-person community engagement meetings with PTO, members of the parent-teacher organizations at our elementary schools. We have a coffee with the superintendent coming up at Harley Hopkins, and there will be other opportunities for the community to engage with the school board and with district leadership. So appreciate your engagement. And finally, I would like to end with just a signal to our amazing partner in Hopkins Education Foundation. The annual Royal Bash is coming up for this Saturday, so we're all looking forward to supporting HEF as they support us. It is Saturday evening with the theme being Adventure Awaits. I do think tickets are sold out. And we thank all of the attendees in advance for not only attending the Royal Bash, but being enticed into and invited to support our teachers and instructional programming here in Hopkins Public Schools. So looking forward to a good time on Saturday. And that's it for my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Dr. Mary Perry Reed? That I would look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second to approve the agenda?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, I would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to our treasurer's report with Treasurer Adams.
Thank you, Chair Westmoreland. Expenses of note in the last period, which was January 31 through February 16, include a payment of $37,000 for snow removal on January 7 through 9. And that was very substantial snow. I'm willing to take bets with anyone on what it's going to be for the next 2 days here. Because we're going to get even more than we got on January 7th through 9th. Numerous payments for substitute teachers. We continue to have to rely on them for assistance during the winter flu season. There were numerous payments to athletic booster clubs for serving at concession stands during games, and that's always a great way to do fundraising for those booster clubs. $18,657 for milk. That just shows you how much we spend on food for our kids. $5,160 for lift tickets for the junior high and high school ski clubs at Afton Alps. But not to be left out, the Nordic skiers got $400 for ski wax. So, and I know they competed up at Giants Ridge last week, I believe. $7,070 for internet-based plagiarism detection service that we employ and have for quite a few years. That's Turnitin. And $3,000 for our spotlight guest artist, Jeremy Messersmith, who'll be performing at the high school with our orchestra on Friday. So if people are so interested, they can look that up and attend. So with that, I move that we approve total disbursements in the amount of $1,795,522.31 for the period of January 1 through February 16, 2023.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve the treasurer's report. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Treasurer Adams. We will move into our new business agenda items. I'd like to invite our Citizens Financial Advisory Committee team to the table, and I will turn it over to Dr. Mary Peary-Reed.
Thank you, Chair Westmoreland, and hello again to members of our Citizens Financial Advisory Committee. Earlier, we had M.A. Blatz also with us. But hello again, Warren Goodroad, who is a member of this committee, and Andy Kosemba. And thank you, Director Chepanduka, for being here. So during the workshop, we were able to hear a summary of the CFAC, the written CFAC report. And just for our listening audience tonight, the Citizens Financial Advisory Committee is a small team of financial experts that work with Director Chepanduka and with district administration to study all of the factors that contribute to the budgeting process and help CFAC identify parameters as we move forward. So we look at enrollment and the state's fiscal outlook, instructional priorities and programs, and lots of other things to put together a comprehensive report. And so we appreciate all of the time that goes into that, all of the scrutiny that goes into that, and the partnership. And we'll give you the space to provide that summary again, and then for board members to ask questions.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. So I'll read the summary, and then we'll be happy to take any questions. Since December, the CFAC committee has held 4 virtual meetings to review the financial health of the district. We are thankful to the board and the staff for their leadership and for the opportunity to share our recommendations. The district is expecting a small decrease in enrollment for the current fiscal year ending June 2023, and is projecting flat enrollment in 2024 and for the foreseeable future. State funding, which is based on enrollment, comprises just over 60% of the district's revenue. At this time, it is difficult to say if increases in state aid will keep pace with the district increases in wages and benefits, which comprise 82% of the district's expenditures. CFAC has analyzed multiple scenarios based on different increases in state aid and in wages and benefits. CFAC recommends budgeting for fiscal year 24 with a 3% increase in per student state funding and a 3% increase in wages, a 3% increase in benefits, and a 7% increase in purchase services, utilities, transportation, and supply costs. If these recommendations are realized, a positive budget balance will be achieved. While some scenarios for the fiscal year ending in June 2024 result in a positive budget balance, others result in a budget shortfall. CFAC continues to recommend that unassigned fund balances do not be used to cover any shortfalls. If shortfalls are covered with unassigned fund balances without taking corrective action, the budgeted shortfalls amount will be compounded and the unassigned fund balance will quickly decrease below the board policy of 6%. The district's unassigned fund balance was $11.3 million, or 10% of operating expenditures as of June 30th, 2022, and a balanced budget is anticipated for the current fiscal year so that the unassigned fund balance should remain over the CFAC recommended level of 10% at June 30th of 23. While the legislative outlook is extremely fluid, if expenditures exceed revenues, it will be necessary to find efficiencies in services and programs while aligning with the district's Vision 2031 goals. Thank you again for everything you do, and we're happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you so much. The presentation and acceptance of the CFAC report officially kicks off our budgeting season here at the board table, but we know that the work of budgeting happens year-round, as I'm looking at Director Chapanduka and his team, and we know that you have been working so hard as our community financial experts who serve on CFAC to look at all of the factors here and prepare this report for us. And so we're just so grateful for your expertise and the hours that you put into this. Dr. Mary Perry-Reed mentioned that at the workshop we had a robust discussion about the report. During that conversation, Director Adams brought up some of the contextual factors that have been challenging for you as CFAC members as you prepared this report. And so, Director Adams, I'm wondering if you could talk a bit about kind of the broader context here.
Well, certainly. One of them is always the state of the finances for the state of Minnesota, which are in great shape right now. So you would expect that we would not have any challenges in funding education. However, there have been some variables introduced that we haven't had to deal with before. We're still seeing repercussions from COVID, and it has an influence on enrollment, not just in the Hopkins district, but across the state. And the way people choose for their educational experience for their children has changed. There's a lot more options as far as charter schools, private schools, online schools. So it's really introduced some variables that we haven't had to deal with that much before. And then at the legislative level, despite the fact that we've got a cohesive DFL majority in the legislature and in the governor's office, they still can't decide on what route to take. The governor proposed a 4% and 2% increase on the formula. That's being pushed back by some legislators that say, let's do 5% and 5% on the formula. We don't know what they're going to be choosing. I was telling the members of the CFAC before this meeting that I've got a cartoon at home, I should have brought it along, that shows someone making a presentation in the state, in the nation's capital about how to forecast finances, and the gentleman says, "The following forecast is a figment of my imagination. I hope you enjoy it." And that's basically where we're at as a budgeting concern here. We don't know what the legislature is going to do. And it's very unpredictable. The one thing I think I can predict this year is they will finish and finalize a budget before June 30th. I think that will happen this year, luckily. So that gives us some more time to, to consider our own budget. But there's a lot of variables, a lot of unknowns, and I think since I've been on the board, nothing has been more uncertain about our financial future than it has been this year. So with that caveat, we put forth the proposal for the budget for the board to consider.
Thank you, Director Adams. I think it's really helpful for our community to understand kind of all of the different factors that go into preparing a report like this. At the workshop, our last agenda item was a budget update, the first of many between now and June during our workshops and our meetings. And Director Chepanduka talked a bit about how, a 5% increase, it sounds like a lot. And when you think about how underfunded public education has been over time and the compounding effects of that underfunding, 5% really isn't that much, right? Like we'll take it and say thank you. And it is certainly not going to fix all of our problems. So important for our larger community to understand that, as they're hearing some of the political talking points around historic investments in public education. Yes, and public education has been egregiously underfunded for so long that even historic investments don't solve all of the problems that we face financially as districts.
Chair Westmoreland,
Yes.
I'd like to point out that at this point, schools in Minnesota, school districts currently receive $1,700 less per student on an inflation-adjusted basis than they did in 2003. And no matter what the impact of whatever number that the legislature comes up with, there's still going to be a shortfall compared to where we were 20 years ago. So I haven't seen any proposal that says, let's make all that up. That's not going to happen. So,
Director, I was going to call you Director Goodroad. Do you see it? Like I still view you that way. Former school board director Goodroad and our esteemed CFAC community member made a really great point about how much of our budget goes towards staffing. And what was that percentage that you gave us at the workshop?
82% of our budget goes towards salary and benefits.
82%. And so if we contextualize that within a nationwide teacher shortage, I don't think we need to name all the reasons for that, right? And, in Hopkins here, we've increased our reliance on substitutes as well, as Director Adams pointed out during the treasurer's report. We're anticipating a 3% increase in salary, another 3% increase in fringe benefits in these projections. And we know that the staff who work with our kids, our youth, on a daily basis deserve to be paid so much more, right? And we can't do that because of not only the current funding levels, but this, I'm going to keep saying it, the long-lasting effects of chronic underfunding of public education that even historic investments cannot undo. So keeping all of this in mind, as we accept this report tonight, wondering if my board colleagues have any other comments or questions for our CFAC team.
I think all the hard questions are answered in
in the workshop. I'm looking at my notes from the workshop just to make sure that we've kind of covered everything that our community might want to know. We also commented on the relatively conservative enrollment estimates that are included in this report, and how that is a smart way to go, right? Best case scenario, more and more people will hear about the great things we're doing here in Hopkins schools, and our enrollment numbers will increase. But we can't count on that, and so we have a really great team that works on enrollment predictions, looking at a variety of factors. We hear those reports here at the board table, and so I think the approach taken to enrollment predictions here in the report is conservative and is the right way to go. So appreciate that. There was some conversation around the fund balance. There's a recommendation to keep our unassigned fund balance at between 10 and 15% here in the report. Vice Chair Andreessen brought up a really good point about our board policy that says that our unassigned fund balance has to be at least 6%. And as Director Adams helped us understand, that 6% point is like really a critical marker, like the alarm bells start to sound as soon as we hit that 6% point. We don't want to get down there, right? But our board policy has that as the limit to help protect us from falling below that, which would be really bad news. So we've worked really hard to get our fund balance to that 10% level, and unassigned fund balance, I should say, to that 10% level, and continuing to increase that up to 15% as our CFAC recommends. So.
Chair Westmoreland,
Yes.
I'll just point out for the public's benefit that our unassigned fund balance affects our credit rating. And we've got a good credit rating right now. It's not the top one, but our credit rating, our auditors have recommended a 15% unassigned fund balance, which I don't know if we've ever been there, quite honestly, but if we could get to that point, that would give us a better credit rating and save us money on interest on any bonds that we might issue. So it'd be nice to get to there at some point.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for our CFAC team? Mr. Goodroad is rolling off CFAC, and
Found out tonight.
yes, and we will miss you so much, and wanted to give you a moment to talk, to justify your decision. No, to talk about your experience serving us here in the district. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say how much I have enjoyed serving on CFAC. I've been on here for over 12 years, and that I so have appreciated the fellow CFAC members that I've worked with over the years, and including the current CFAC committee. Has been a real joy to work with them, and they're dedicated and very insightful. And then I also want to take a moment to thank the staff and the wonderful, wonderful staff that's been a joy to work with, as well as being before the board here for many, many CFAC reports. And so I just encourage anybody in the district who wants to get involved in working on some of the school district committees, and if you're financially oriented, they've got a spot for you. If you've got other talents, why, I know they have spots for that too. And the district needs new blood, needs new people to serve in committees for new insights, and so that's what I'm calling for as I retire from the board. And I really thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Warren, and thank you for
you.
your service as a school board member too. And just on a personal note, you were provided a lot of support and mentorship to me when I first joined the board, and it's been wonderful to continue to work with you in this capacity in your role at CFAC. And we wish you well in your retirement from CFAC. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Warren.
Yeah.
And thank you to our entire CFAC team. We will let you brave the roads now and get home safely.
All right, thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Andy. Thank you, Truro.
So we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is policies in first read. I will turn it over to Vice Chair Andreessen as we welcome Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot to the table.
Thank you, Chair Westmoreland. Welcome, Superintendent Lightfoot. We have two policies before the board today that have gone through the monitoring committee, and some with and without changes. I wanted to orient the whole board in the equity impact analysis tool that we use as a monitoring committee. So I will read the 3 questions that we enter into discussions around. What are the equity impacts of this decision? Who will benefit from and/or be burdened by this decision? And are there strategies to mitigate any unintended consequences of this decision? With that, I will turn it over to Superintendent Lightfoot to, Assistant Superintendent Lightfoot to walk us through each policy.
Thank you. Good evening. Good to be with you all. We have 2 policies this evening. The first is the district calendar policy. You will note that there was specific language added to this. That language was based off of the board goals around calendar equity, and we worked with some additional language to highlight the original intent that was instrumental in helping us to shape the policy language that is here, as well as to use guidance in the creation of our calendar for this year and for next. So with that, we'll be open for any questions or additional comments related to policy 602.
Chair Westmoreland,
Yes.
I would like to make an editorial comment. If anyone in our viewing public takes a look at this policy, they'll see that there's a lot of references to state law. And one of the things that we as a district and a legislative action coalition have been lobbying for the last few years is that boards be given more control over setting their own calendar. There's a lot of restrictions that are referenced in this policy, and it's something that I think really takes away some of the control for school calendars from school boards, and a lot of loopholes that you can use, and but the upshot of it is the state legislature really controls what our school calendar should look like, to the detriment, I think, of our students, because having to start after Labor Day, for one thing, because of the resort community lobbying, the state fair lobbying, those are not entities that should be in charge of our children's education. And I would like to see us return to a time when school boards could actually set the calendar for their own district. That's my editorial comment.
Thank you. I appreciate the statement included here around calendar equity. I think it certainly is reflective of our practice as we've continued to evolve our calendar. And yes, if school boards had more control over when we could start school, different calendar considerations that would allow us to make our calendars even more equitable. So, so definitely appreciate this change and the context, Director Adams. Any other discussion around this policy? Okay, looks like we can move on to policy 605.
Thank you. And our last policy this evening is Policy 605, which is our alternative learning program. This is an authorizing policy, which is based in statute, which allows the district to create alternative learning programs. No specific changes are recommended at this time.
Any board member questions or comments on this policy? Okay, with that, I would look for a motion that the board approve the above policies in first read, and that the board direct the administration to prepare the policies for approval in second reading at the next meeting as part of the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the policies. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Colleagues, I apologize. I forgot to have us vote on the
Thank you, Nick.
CFAC recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're good on this agenda item. We got so engrossed in our conversation about the CFAC recommendations and thanking our colleague Warren that for the first time, I'm just going to say this for the record, for the first time in my history as chair, I forgot to have us vote.
It's your first mistake ever.
It's my first mistake in my life, so
Yeah, that's
so I'm
hard.
glad that it's I'm glad that it's being publicly streamed on YouTube. Okay. So I would look for a motion that the board accept the Citizens Financial Advisory Committee report.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the CFAC report. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much for your patience with me. Okay, so now we can move into our board member reports.
I would like to go first before Steve.
Wow, look at that.
Good.
So I just have two quick ones because I know everybody's anxious to weather their ride home. So for my two spotlights, on February 15th, I had the opportunity to participate in the Educator of Color mentorship gathering. Paris Timmons was one of the co-leads in this coordinated group, and we were able to pick a topic, and one of the topics was just how our scholars' mental health is going, or not going, I'm trying to find the right word, how our scholars are doing during this time post-COVID. And, you know, it was nice to hear from perspective of staff of what their experiences were during this time. And then on 2/16, I had the opportunity to attend the Caregivers of Black and African Diaspora Scholars, and happened to see two other board members that showed up to do a presentation about LAC and how Legislative Action Coalition, you know, is championing being able to obviously get some additional funding to public school education, and you know, how different community members can be a part of getting more action within the LAC. So those were two quick things I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Ross.
I'll go. I was looking over my calendar for the last 2 weeks, and it's CFAC, LAC, CFAC, LAC, so.
Audit.
Did we have an audit meeting? I don't know if we had. Anyway.
Oh, maybe that was 3 weeks ago. Toss it in there anyway.
But Director Ross referenced the meeting that we had, that LAC met with the newly formed parents of color, parents and caregivers of color, but it's part of the discussion that night referenced or circulated around what are they going to call themselves. So yeah, I didn't write it down. Black diaspora, is that what we came up?
African diaspora.
African diaspora, okay. But at any rate, some of the parents that were at that meeting suggested that they would like to be included in more of our LAC deliberations. And they were the following day. We had a LAC meeting the following day, and 2 of them showed up, and we had a very robust discussion about some of the issues that they, as caregivers of children of color, face, and things that we might suggest to the legislature. So I'm glad to see them taking us up on that. And that's really it as far as my calendar, CFAC, LAC, CFAC, LAC. So,
Lots of acronyms.
yeah.
I just wanted to quickly thank our legislators in the House of Representatives at the state who passed universal school meals. And we're looking forward to the Senate doing the same. We know the governor will support it. Just thrilled that this is going to happen for Minnesota families.
Really exciting. And thanks in large part to all of your fantastic advocacy, Vice Chair Andreessen, and coalition building around this issue.
Yes.
Just accept it. There you go. Good job. Okay. Any other board member reports? Okay. With that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. This meeting of the Hopkins School Board is adjourned at 7:56 PM. Please drive safely.